Introduction to what I call trauma-sensitive fitness. Now, what is trauma-sensitive fitness? You've heard of trauma-sensitive yoga, maybe, if you're a yoga teacher. But if you're a fitness teacher or any type of teacher really, or even just a person interested in knowing more about themselves and their body, this is going to give you a lot of information and teach you a little bit about what trauma-sensitive fitness is. It's very similar to trauma-sensitive yoga in the fact that we look to the body to understand and to help heal past traumas through movement, through breathing, right? And through sound and through exploration of our body. Trauma-sensitive fitness is geared towards not just yoga teachers or Pilates teachers, but really geared toward anybody who has a body and that exercises or wants to start exercising and has been really uncomfortable with traditional methods that don't address the physical, the mental, spiritual, and emotional parts of each person. And that really is what this is about. And trauma comes in many forms. And just for today's purposes, I want to discuss a little bit about this current situation that a lot of people are going through, the feelings of anxiety that are coming up as a result of this feeling of being suppressed, feeling out of control, feeling as if things are coming from all over the place and you don't know what to do. And that's what most people are feeling. This sense of, oh my God, almost for some people impending doom, which, comes to our survival, right? Our survival. So with trauma-sensitive fitness, we are instructors, trainers, or just people looking to understand ourselves better, to work through maybe current type traumas that we're experiencing, maybe small transgressions such as, I lost my job, I don't know what to do. Now that may seem like a small transgression or a big transgression depending on your life, right? Larger transgressions that maybe have happened in our life where we were younger, right? And we were very influenced by something and something may have happened to us and maybe we've forgotten about it or we thought we've worked through it. And then, of course, as we start moving our body, especially in this situation, we're starting to notice old feelings coming up. And why is that, right? Why is it that you're feeling your palms sweaty? Or why is it that your heart rate's going up? Or if you're a trainer, why is it that my client is calling and canceling? Or when they're there, they're not really present. They're looking around, or they're clenching their fists, or they're clenching their teeth. Or they're complaining they have more headaches. Things like that are happening, and I started working with trauma quite a long time ago because I've had my own traumas in life, and in our deeper practice we can talk about our traumas, but in this particular instance I want to talk about two things that allow us to be more suggestible and triggered by past traumas, even if we don't know what those traumas were. Because a lot of times we don't know, and sometimes that's okay. You don't have to know. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of studies that show that some people who never talk about their traumas have been fine, and they found alternative coping methods, okay? But not everybody is that fortunate, right? Some of our behaviors, right, our avoidance type behaviors can be coming from past transgressions, or I don't even like to say triggers as much as I like to say transgressions that happen that may make us feel uncomfortable, or in other words, trigger a response. Because I believe in this culture right now, triggering has really been a negative. It's always a negative. But you have to remember, if you're a trauma survivor, it wasn't your fault. And that's the main thing that we need to look at, these two things, which are usually guilt, right? Guilt for something that you didn't even cause, right? And shame for something that you didn't even do, perhaps, or that was done to you. And there are two different types of trauma that we will be discussing if you decide to come to a more in-depth training with us. And those two are complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's 5 words: complex post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. And they're 2 different things. One has the C in front of it, complex, and the other one doesn't. And I'll give you the quick rundown of that. Basically, post-traumatic stress disorder is the one you hear about, like a person was in the army and all of a sudden they come back and they are shell-shocked, right? We've all heard our grandparents, our grandfathers who were in the war, shell-shocked. They came home shell-shocked. Shell-shocked is another term before they really started to look into this and really get that it was emotional, physical, right, and environmental situation for post-traumatic stress disorder, these things that happened to somebody and made them a little bit shell-shocked, right? Now, for post-traumatic stress disorder, you may have a client who gets triggered by the loud noises. Maybe the music, for example, is really loud, or a big clank of the dumbbell hitting the floor. Now, you may not know that and they may never tell you, but that stuff is real and it happens all the time. Another thing that we talk about is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the one with the little C in front of it, or I should say the big C, because it's complex. Why is it complex? Because most of the time it's an interpersonal situation, or it can also be a situation where you're feeling subjugated or pushed down or on lockdown in some form, or having to do things that you don't want to do, but you have to do them for survival. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. For example, if you're a small child and you had a parent that maybe didn't give you very much attention, they didn't maybe feed you enough, or they weren't there in some way, or some other transgression may have happened. Those things stick with us in our nervous system, and they're complex because you have to keep living, and you have to keep smiling, and you have to keep doing your life, right? Knowing that that person's in your life all the time. So it causes what we call cognitive dissonance, and it is a very tricky thing to work with. Now, why are we talking about this? Because COVID-19 has brought this to the surface for a lot of us. Maybe for some people it was sexual assault that happened. Maybe for somebody it was a car accident. Maybe for somebody else it was another great loss. Their parent died in their arms. It could be anything. I'm just saying that there's many ways that people experience trauma. It's not just, you're in the war or you're molested. There's a lot of other variables in between. And we can use exercise and movement, breathing, and sound to work through any of those types of traumas. Now, how do you even know that somebody's coming to you with trauma? Very simply, and we can go into more details in the longer workshop, but very simply, there's two or three things that you can look for. Number one, noticing if your client has more often than not very clenched fists, very tight muscles, clenched jaws. That's one way. If you're, for example, teaching, let's say you're a teacher and you are having the person maybe lay down to do a bench press. And before you even put the weights in their hand, they're already like this. That may be some other thing that's going on subconsciously, right? May or may not be related to trauma, we don't know. But as a teacher, we want to start looking at the subtleties in our client's body to get the answers. And again, we don't need to find out anything about their past trauma. This is not about digging up old graves. We don't need to do that. There's enough skeletons out there, okay, in closets all over the world. Right now, the idea is noticing within ourselves, noticing in our clients what these triggers are, right? For either trauma post-traumatic or complex, or the current situation, which is this very, very high level of anxiety, which for some people could be the first time, if they're lucky enough, to never have anything happen to them in their life which would cause them any kind of trauma. This could be a huge thing for somebody who just lost their job, right? Where is my money coming from? I might lose my house, right? These are real issues that come down here in our survival, right? Money, sex, power, right? And we lose that connection to our heart, and we lose our ability to speak sometimes, right? We lose our ability to communicate and really reach up to our higher levels, and then we go into a little bit of a depression. And it is very normal. As a matter of fact, I would say 90% of the people I work with at some point during this last year have shown up with something related to anxiety or depression in this last year of COVID-19. So it is a real thing. And like I said, you don't have to go in and find out about their trauma necessarily, but you want to notice subtleties, okay? Fist clenching is a really good one. That's just regular tension, jaw clenching, unconscious stuff. But we remind our students in certain ways, which I will share with you, of course, if you decide to take the other workshop at a later date, which we can really have fun with that. But noticing those things is really important. Another thing I want to talk to you about is there's 5 ways that people are subconsciously programmed, okay? This means that we are really socially conditioned in an amazing way that nobody even realizes. But there's 5 methods. Today we're just going to talk about 2. One is emotions, right? Emotion. The word itself, emotion, motion, right? Energy in motion, or anything really you want to put there for the E, but thinking energy in motion. So when we are feeling emotions, right? Emotions typically come from thinking, right? Repetitive thoughts. A lot of times, especially now, there is going to be a repetitive loop. And then that loop becomes your conscious thinking all the time. So our subconscious becomes conscious because we speak it, or we think it, or we feel it, or emote it into existence. So emotions. My client comes in and I say, hey, how you doing today? They say, I'm fine. And if you've worked with me before, you know what fine means, right? F-I-N-E. The F, effed, effed up, insecure, the I, neurotic, and empty, as an acronym for fine. So when I say to somebody, I say, hey, Tanya, I'm doing fine today. She just looks at me and she shakes her head and she's like, okay, what's the F, the I, the N, and the E? What does that mean? And you want to create those fun little ways, right, within yourself and with your clients to address some of these things. So for example, with the heavy anxiety and the depression that's going on right now, when somebody comes to see me, I can tell by tension in their neck. I can tell by tension in their fists. I can also tell by their eyes. So a lot of moving the head, a lot of the moving of the eyes is showing up as underlying anxiety. So we are subconsciously programmed by our emotions, right? It's the most powerful driver. So everybody's emotions right now are very, very thin for many reasons. Political reasons. You won, you lost. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You know, there are so many reasons why people are freaked out and don't know what to do, right? And this is the truth. People don't know where this is coming from. And when we talk about generalized anxiety, that's what it is. It's the idea, it's general, it's not specific, right? We don't know where this anxiety is coming from. We have the opportunity to help our clients by moving their body in certain ways, teaching them breathing in certain ways, and sound in certain ways. For example, you could choose bowls, right? Like Jennifer does. She's big crystal bowls to help relax the nervous system, right? To get those things to settle, to move down and release so that we can experience higher levels of vitality. Other ways that we can lift is to do very specific openings of the thoracic spine. The thoracic spine is where all your ribs are attached. And this sensation of opening the throat and the neck, right? And these very tight muscles is where we're holding and storing a lot of emotions, heart-centered feelings, right? Hard-hearted, cold-hearted, warm-hearted, all these different heart feelings. That is really tied into our emotions. So we have ways through breathing, through movement, and through sound, whether it's using a sound like a bowl or simply just screaming at the top of your lungs with your body over 10 pillows, right? Or laying over a barrel. Or when you're lifting weights, right? If you're lifting weights and you're pushing those weights, that's going to get rid of stress. And those little sounds that you make when you're lifting weights are a way of releasing, right? So when we're in the gym, those of us who love the gym, and we're doing a push-up, let's say I'm doing a push-up and I'm going, okay, okay, that's another way of releasing through sound. And what we can do as trainers, and just as humans in general, is to start utilizing those three things, breath, movement, and sound, to create an uplifting experience for our clients. And you can do that without having to know anything about transgressions, trauma, anxiety, or depression, because a lot of us are doing that anyway. But our goal here is to be a little bit more specific, right? To look deeper into what is going on in the body. And I take the process very seriously. We start with the feet, and we spend time looking at our feet, our relationship with our feet. Also, what do the feet represent? Are we grounded? Are we clenching the earth? All these little things that we explore. We work through the knees, and what do the knees represent? What is it about flexibility? Is it about strength? Is it about, I have a knee problem, what's going on there? We look at these things from all points, not just, oh, I have a knee problem, I need to go see a doctor. Well, maybe that is from some other thing that's going on, that we have another physical habit that's creating more problems in our knees. And so on, up the body. We work with the pelvis. We spend a lot of time in the pelvis because the pelvis is definitely an area where we hold a lot of, like I said, shame, guilt, blame, things like that. And for trauma survivors, this is a big, huge deal, especially for complex post-traumatic trauma survivors. Because the pelvis, for many of us, or many of them, and anybody in the world who suffered trafficking, molestation, rape, unwanted, right? Unwanted advances, right? We can get mad about it, but all that turns inward. So in our work, we look at this in a very loving way with a lot of different techniques, right, to help move that energy. Now, in a traditional fitness environment, many people, once we get to the pelvis, they shoot and bolt and you never see them again. And that's another thing that we talk about a lot in our course, is why some people disappear, right? And I've had that happen many times in my work with people. Before I really got what I was doing as a trainer, as a yoga teacher, as a Pilates teacher, what I was really doing with people's bodies, I didn't get sometimes, even though I had worked through my own body, I didn't really get that, oh my God, they disappeared, they never came back. Not because of me, right? I am not that fabulous that people are going to be there or not be there for me. They found something in themselves a little too uncomfortable, and they realized that they weren't ready to go there subconsciously, and that was a good thing for them. I never look at it like, oh, they disappeared and oh, I feel bad about it. I look at this as, my client disappeared for a little while because they need to work through that on their own, and that's okay. I don't want them to leave, but if it happens, I know that perhaps they will be back, or in some way I need to connect with them. And if they really disappear and never talk to me again, it's because I know I've hit something, and I know that they'll be working through that. And like I said, I have had the people come back years later to tell me this. So there is value to this, but my job is to not get people to disappear. I would really like for them to stay through the whole thing if possible. However, that doesn't always happen. Canceled appointments, things that happen in people's lives really have nothing to do with us a lot of the time. But we can create an environment where they feel safe and comfortable in a fitness situation or an exercise situation where they really want to stay and evolve and move through those parts. So going up the body, when we get to the pelvis, that can be really tricky for people. So we will learn ways that we can work through the pelvis and get that energy to flow so that it can go up and out and really engage into the world in a way where we serve our highest purpose in life. Whatever that is for each of us. As my mentor, Gloria Keeling, always said, let's take the energy that we use today in our class and use it to serve our highest purpose in life, right? Whatever that is for us. So every time we train a client, every time we do yoga, every time we do Pilates, whatever it is, we are creating, right, and moving energy. And that energy comes up, and then we get to use that somehow in our life, hopefully to serve the highest purpose, and whatever that is, right, for each person, whatever it is for each of us. And you don't have to know anything about your client's trauma. All you need to know is that you've been doing these certain things in a certain way, and you're seeing them make some changes, right? And it really is happening. It's their responsibility, right? It's our responsibility to just provide the tools in a really safe, empathetic, sensitive environment for them to be able to have the experience however they want to have it, right? And that's the emotional component of it. That's why it's a really big driver. Emotions are the most powerful way to control people. And we know this. This is not rocket science, okay? The other way that we, of the 5, but I'll give you the 2, the other way that we subconsciously get programmed is through the alpha brainwave state. The alpha brainwave state is the state that we pass through all day long from, let's say we're going to bed at night, we're getting ready for bed, and just before you drop off to sleep, you go into that nice, relaxing place, right? Other times we go into alpha state all day long, believe it or not. When you have a period of high intensity, like you're getting up, you're getting in your car and you're running, you get in the car, you're still in a brainwave state that's high. And as soon as you get into the car and you start driving, you're a little more calm, and you're driving and you're in the alpha brainwave state, and you end up going to the wrong place, right? You went to go to Tanya's house and you ended up at Susan's house on the other side of the island, because maybe our subconscious mind, right, and it happens to us all the time, you get into the car and you drive away and you're somewhere else completely, right? That is your subconscious mind. That is the alpha state, that brainwave state that took you there. It takes over. It's like automatic, right? We go there a lot. So how is that a method of subconscious programming? Well, it happens all the time. If you watch TV, right? You're watching a great movie and you're all engrossed in the movie and you're like, wow, I feel like I'm in this movie. And all of a sudden the phone rings. But you are so engaged in the movie that you don't even hear the phone ring, right? You're really engaged. That's your alpha brainwave state. Now it's very suggestible because the advertisers know this, and as soon as a commercial comes on, what do you notice? The volume increases of the sound of the commercial, right? And the commercial is set just at a time when you are like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? That's the alpha state. You're there, and then poof, click, commercial. Okay, and that's a different of the 5, and I'm not going to share that with you unless you come to class. But from those 5 methods of subconscious programming, the 2, I think the 2 really important ones right now are the emotional, right, and the alpha state, because we're in that alpha state anytime we're surprised from a calm state. So that commercial came on, they know, they put it louder, and then it's about a hamburger, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes later you're hungry. And of course there's the 100 ways that we're subconsciously programmed through the alpha state, which we can learn and explore together. And those are the main things about subconscious programming. Now, some of the ways that people in our courses or in our classes or just our family members experience trauma outwardly is by kind of closing up and holding up right now. And I notice this within myself as well as a lot of my other friends who are trauma survivors in one form or another, is it's really great. We actually love COVID-19 for that one reason, because it's like, oh yeah, I can just stay home and hole up. I don't have to see anybody. It's very, very, very common for trauma survivors to just not want to engage, because it's the trust in the outside world is very challenging to deal with. So when we have clients who are just like, I can't show up today, they really mean that they can't show up. It's not like they're being lazy. It kind of bothers me when people say it's a big pet peeve. People are not lazy. There are times when they cannot get out of bed. And ask a trauma survivor, and if you are a trauma survivor in any way, you know for sure that there are times when you cannot take in anymore, right? Can't do it. So these things come up in various ways, in the form of loud noises. So maybe that clanging of the weight or the music, where they don't want to do something because they're afraid they're going to be triggered by something like that. Or they may be insecure about their body and they don't want to do a bunch of exercises in front of other people, right? So there's a lot of ways that we can work through that and get our clients to maybe not cancel, or to help them through those sticky parts. Again, specifically for trauma sensitive fitness, right? Not everybody had something happen to them. And like I said, we don't need to know what it is. We just need to know what to look for. What are the symptoms, right? What do we look for in the body? We look for that within ourselves, and then we share that in a way, and in a safe way, and in an empathetic way, and a sensitive way with our clients. Those are the main things that I wanted to talk about today. Traditional fitness programs that don't necessarily work because they don't address the spiritual, the emotional, the physical, right, and the psychological aspect of our clients. And subconscious programming, alpha state, right, the alpha brainwave state, and emotions. Huge. Those are two main drivers. So when you feel emotional, you should realize that you are very suggestible, okay? And you mind your thoughts during those times, okay? And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was, how do we go from depression, anxiety to vitality? And we have many, many exercises, and I tend to use a combination of physical training, like weight training, yoga, Pilates, bioenergetic exercise, which I find has been just so powerful for me and for my clients in addressing some of these suppressed feelings and bringing them up and away without having to put somebody back into their trauma. That is the key. And you don't have to be a hypnotherapist like me, but I can teach you how to hypnotize yourself, and to help teach your clients how to hypnotize themselves when they're going into these states. So it's very powerful stuff, and it's really important that we use it properly. We don't use it to hurt people or to manipulate people in any way, because that also happens, and it happens all the time. And that's why I'm coming out to share this, because trauma survivors have been manipulated already by first their perpetrator and then themselves, because they still hear the perpetrator's voice in their head, or if it's post-traumatic stress, they're still feeling a lot of times like they're in that environment that they were in when they were triggered. And the brain doesn't know the difference. So those are some of the things that I really want to focus on when we do these courses together. Now, the vitality exercise that I want to show you today, we're going to have my friend Tanya come on up here. She's my business partner. And if you would indulge us for a moment, I'm going to move my
Hey everyone.
And you don't even need your mat, hon. So we just throw that to the
Okay.
side. We get real here. By the way,
I'm a creature of habit. I'm a creature of habit.
So I'm gonna have her stand, just stand still, right in the mountain pose. Perfect. This is one of my favorite ones, Tanya. You're gonna take your arms up like this. I want you to just bring your elbows back like that and squeeze your shoulders together. Yeah. And then bring your arms out in front and bring them back like that.
Did you hear my back crack?
I did. And that always happens too. So we're gonna have a fist, right? And then we're gonna have an open hand. And I can tell you about that in the course. Fist and open hand. So let's do that. And I want you to do it very vigorously now. So it's gonna be one.
Jane Fonda style?
Yes, Jane Fonda style. Now breathe in through the nose and then breathe out. So we've got movement, right? We've got breathing specifically. And now we're gonna add a sound, okay? And in this case, we're gonna do a talking, expressive exercise, okay? So talking, you're gonna say, get off my back. Say that out loud.
Get
off
my back.
Good, keep going.
Get off my back.
Now,
Get off
is
my
there-
back.
Yes, get off my back.
Get off
Is there
my
a
back.
problem, a
Get
person,
off
or
my
a
back.
situation
Get
that's
off my
bothering
back.
you?
Get off my
Is
back.
something you want to get,
Get off my back. Get off my
Good.
back.
Now close your eyes if you want.
Let's keep going.
Yes,
Get
and keep
off my
going.
back.
Get
off my back.
off
my back.
Louder.
Get
Now do
off
it with us.
my back.
Get off. Now say it
my
with some
back.
feeling.
Get off.
Do you
my
mean it? Yes.
back. Get off my
Two more times
back.
today.
Get off my back.
Emote.
Get
off. Let's
off
do one
my
more. Really
back.
mean it.
Get off my back.
And then shake out a little bit. And then go ahead and just kind of do that with your back.
Really,
Shake
it really
out a
brought
little
up
bit.
my right shoulder issue that I've had since my aerobic days
Your aerobic.
in the 80s.
So you want to get that off your back, right?
Definitely.
So you can. So how does your? So go ahead and relax your arms, and then just take your head side to side, and that obviously is going to strengthen your arms too. And close your eyes for a moment if you want. Again, they don't have to close their eyes if it brings up something. But just notice: do you feel lighter? Do you feel more energized?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Something has lifted. It doesn't have to be told what it is, but something lifts. Now that's just one example of something that I might do with a client. And I may not even do it in that way. I may do it 100 different ways. But those are some of the fun ways, because we want to, making trauma fun. We kind of do have to make it a little interesting and fun, because in order for us to do the work, we have to want to do it. And guess what trauma survivors do? They're perfect at avoiding things, avoidance behaviors. That's what we do. And so it's a double-edged sword. We want to fix and work on ourselves, but the trauma that's locked in our body keeps us from doing that on a regular basis because of our avoidance habits, which again are neurally programmed. So we take that idea of movement, breathing, and sound. And again, sound today was her yelling, but sound could be many, many things. Does that make sense? Thank you, lovely Tanya.
Mahalo.
Let me come back over here and sit for a moment. That is a very powerful way to get rid of unwanted emotions. So trauma survivors are going to be a little more unique in how you're going to work with them, and sometimes more fun. The reason why is because if they do allow themselves access to these things, their life opens up in a way that you could never imagine. Because if you've survived something really shitty in your life, nothing probably worse is ever going to happen to you again. And when you get that, then your life opens up. Your fears do start to go away. You still have them. You still have the loops because they're neurally programmed, right? But when we learn what that means, what the allostatic load is, and all that interesting or sciencey stuff, right? The vagus nerve, when we learn all that stuff about ourselves and our clients, then we can really live in such a way where, yeah, that thing is still there in our life, but we've made it a friend and not a foe, right? We have made that scary thing not so scary, right? Because we've owned it. And again, it comes back to, when it comes to trauma, it's 99.9% of the time not your fault, okay? The 0.5% there could have just been, an oops, huh? Which we've all had maybe at times in our life. But the truth is that if you were in some kind of situation, it wasn't your fault. And when you can get to that place where you allow yourself to let that go, those other shame, blame, fear, guilt, and all of those things start to go off to the side. And then we can live as best as we can, with the most vitality, with the most energy. And if you're a trainer, you get to share that with your clients because you want them to feel wonderful. That's our job, right? We want people to feel awesome. That's why we got into this business, right? Not just to look good in a leotard, or whatever people wear these days, right? So that's all I wanted to share with you today. I'm very excited to be presenting these courses starting in the coming months for a 2.5-hour workshop where we go a little bit deeper. We take a deeper dive into this work. We also will talk about hypnosis, body parts, and very, very specific and practical ways, right? It's not just going to be talk, because nothing gets solved with talking. Everything gets solved in this corner with movement, breathing, and sound. And that's all I want to share with you today.